Coming up on Tech News Weekly, Abrar Al-Heeti of CNET is here, and she kicks off this week's episode by talking about how college students have figured out a way to use Meta's smart glasses to essentially dox people IRL and in real time. Then I finally get the opportunity to talk about all the drama going on between WordPress and Automatic and WP Engine. It is a back and forth mess, and boy, it is juicy, juicy tea. Afterward, Daniel Rubino of Windows Central joins us to talk about all the cool new features Microsoft has announced and in some cases rolled out for its AI Copilot Plus PCs and Copilot in general. And then we round things out with a conversation with Christian Selig, the iOS developer who at one point made Apollo and now makes Juno, which has just been pulled from the App Store. Yeah, we got a lot to talk about on this episode of Tech News Weekly, so stay tuned.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust. This is Twit.
This is Tech News Weekly, episode 356, with Abrar Al-Heeti and me, Mikah Sargent. Recorded Thursday, October 3rd, 2024. Microsoft's latest Copilot updates. Hello and welcome to Tech News Weekly, the show where every week we talk to and about the people making and breaking that tech news. I am your host, Mikah Sargent, and I'm excited to say it is the first week of October. Spooky. No, so that means we are joined by the wonderful Abrar Al-Heeti of CNET. Welcome back, Abrar.
Thank you. I'm very excited for spooky season, fall season.
Yes.
Gotta hit up the pumpkin patches, eat some apple cider donuts. It's the best season.
And oh my goodness, this is off topic. No, it's not. It's on topic for what we're talking about. Whole Foods right now is selling a spiced cider sparkling water.
Ooh.
It is the best thing. It's the best sparkling water I've ever had. It's got like cloves, cinnamon, a little bit of apple in it. And oh, it's so good. And I just want to buy every box that they have.
This podcast sponsored by Whole Foods.
Yeah.
No, I wish. It needs to be because I'm sold.
It's so good. Yeah. Literally everybody out there, if you like sparkling water and there's a Whole Foods somewhere near you, which there probably is, go find it. It's so good. It is delicious.
I'm so excited.
I hope you do try it, and I hope you text me about it whenever you
will.
I'm looking forward to that. So for folks who are tuning in for the first time or who haven't been here in a while, this is the part of the show where we have our stories of the week. These are stories we read that we thought were interesting that we wanted to share with all of you. And as is tradition, Abrar, you'll be kicking things off.
Yes, I wanted to talk about the creepy side of smart glasses, which won't come as a surprise for anyone who's really been following smart glasses, even, as far back as Google Glass. But there's this project that some Harvard students worked on called I-XRAY. And what this does is they use glasses like Meta Ray-Bans. And what they're able to do is essentially use facial recognition as they're walking around to scan people's faces, and then use reverse facial recognition tools to figure out, to find some URLs with some information that matches what's been scanned, and then using large language models to add details like a person's name or their job or addresses, relatives. It's so far reaching. They're also able to find using the interesting thing here is not only can they use tools that have existed for so long, but what they mention is that the prevalence of large language models and how good they've gotten has made it easier to have this very comprehensive data, again, just from putting on smart glasses like Meta's Ray-Bans and just walking around and scanning people's faces as they're walking by. They mentioned that this is not a tool that they're releasing so that anyone can, snoop on people. Thank goodness. It's kind of just to demonstrate how these smart glasses, which, Meta pitches these as glasses that can kind of blend in and look like regular glasses, which is cool, but then also raises concerns about well, if they just blend in, like when people had Google Glass and were dubbed glass holes, it was because it was like, it was obvious that you were wearing something that looked kind of dystopian and odd and unsettling. But these glasses are designed to just look like glasses. And so it becomes harder to tell, even if there's a little, light that shows up when you're recording, not everyone's going to notice that light, especially in bright sunlight or if they're in a crowd. So it really just does raise these concerns because I feel like I feel this when I go out, but I feel like not everyone. There's a lot of people who are, I think, especially in California, who are maybe vlogging or taking videos or TikTok videos anywhere, but, especially in certain areas. And you have to be conscious of that. You kind of think, will I end up in the background of somebody's video at some point without, consent? And that's fine. I mean, it's public spaces. You can do that, but this is like next level, right? It's not just you being in the background of somebody's video. It's them finding out everything about you. And so they had this video that they posted, which was basically them walking around and talking to people and just sharing like, oh my gosh, are you so-and-so? Don't you work at so-and-so? And they had all this information that they had just gathered, which is really creepy. And these people kind of went along with it. Like, yeah, I am that person. And it kind of seemed like this endearing, like, oh, I know who you are and I know your work and I've read your research or whatever, but it's really just them gathering all this data super, super easily just by putting on these Ray-Bans.
That's pretty chilling, right? I mean, with us, it's a sort of, what is that? Dramatic irony, in the sense that we know what's going on, the person doesn't. It's what's interesting about this is it's one example of how we see big tech actually, like, this is big tech pushing for this future, because think about the Bella Ramsey ads from Apple, where the actor sort of starts to walk into a room, sees somebody that they're supposed to know, backs up, and then asks Siri, who's this person? Where do I know them from? That kind of thing. Yeah. Siri tells them, and then they're able to go on and have the conversation. It's being pushed as a cool future feature, a feature that you would want to have, an option that you'd want to have. But while that is that the way that that's done is through somebody's own, data that's available, where it's looking at your location that you've shared, that you've done, you've opted, blah, blah, blah. Having it be the other way around is chilling. Yeah. But I always come back to, when it comes to this idea, there is a part of me that is very aware of the fact that we are all given, when we sign up for a service, the opportunity to read through terms and conditions. Yeah. And we are all given the choice of whether we sign up for a service or not. Right. And we do have a responsibility to understand, or choose not to, what we're giving when we make those choices. And it's tough, because the sort of soft humanitarian side of me, which is a much larger side of me, is railing against the machine here and saying people need to be, we need to do a better job of telling people what's going on and have them be more aware of it. But there is a small part of me that, I guess, tries to have empathy for literally everything. And so I have empathy for the company in that situation. And I say, the company's doing their due diligence in having it be in the fine print that this is the situation and that your data is available. And I've noticed, as many people do, that it does oftentimes take object lessons for humans to learn like not to do something, or to be better about something. And so maybe these are object lessons that have to happen. This thing where it's like, let me show you what it means, because you've decided not to read through the fine print and you've just said yes, 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 yes to everything. You need to see that to understand the impact. I'm curious, Abrar, anecdotally, in people that you've talked to that are outside of tech, how often do you find that they have a deep concern for their privacy. And if you do take the opportunity to kind of explain, hey, when you're watching TV on this TV that you bought that was a budget TV, it's tracking what you're watching. I want to hear, what's been your experience in that kind of thing over time. And if people are concerned about this, or they're just kind of like, well, it is what it is.
I think that's exactly the problem. I think we get really excited about new technologies, and we get really excited about, oh, this is a free service. If I can sign up for any of these social media platforms, this is a discounted product that I can take advantage of. And then you realize there's always a price, right? It's not, there's no such thing as a free lunch. There's no such thing as free tech. And so you kind of learn a little bit too late what the cost is. So we see people who do kind of have to wait for something like this to come out, where they're like, oh, this is quite serious. And it's not like it just sprung up overnight, right? We've been building up to this for so long. These platforms have been collecting our data for so long. And so then you get a piece of tech like this, and it's not just about the glasses, right? People are concerned about what glasses can record and capture, but it's about everything that it's able to access and what that bigger picture looks like. So yeah, I think we who are in this space, whether we're reading or writing these tech stories, we know what the privacy implications are. We understand the dangers, but we still engage in it, right? And so imagine if you don't necessarily know everything that's at stake. And yeah, I think a lot of it is just very much in the dark.
Yeah. It's I celebrate this use of the technology as a means, because very clearly, they're not making it available to people. They're literally showing you, look at this thing that you can do with it. It's not great that this can happen. So going back to the question that I asked you, answering it for myself, I will say that I have seen, which I've been happy about, an overall increase in awareness of one's sort of data value and one's privacy. And I like that has happened. Yeah. But it only reaches to a certain extent. Mm-hmm. And that's been the fascinating thing for me, is while I have seen more people showing concern about an app, say, tracking them, I specifically brought up the TV example because that is so far down the line for people that, again, anecdotally, I've explained that in the past, and that's just one that they don't really care about. And there are a few out there where it's like, oh, that's doing that? That's fine. That, that makes sense. And it's not to the level that we have, and the awareness, I think, that we, and by we, I mean those who study this stuff every day and who do in different ways read through terms and conditions and understand the implications therein. It's not there yet. And I'm curious if it will get there, or if, because I almost saw there used to be a whole heck of a lot of apathy about privacy, and especially the phrase you would always hear. They'd always kind of joke, I don't care if the CIA is looking at my stuff. I'm not doing anything wrong. If somebody wants to look at my stuff, I'm just boring. So who cares? Yeah, that was the refrain. I used to have that. That used to be my refrain. And then I remember the day that it changed, because a good friend of mine convinced me that apathy was only making things worse. And then so I became kind of hypersensitive to it, at least in awareness of it. And I saw a decrease in that apathy, an increase in that concern. But I'm wondering if it's tanking again a little bit, because it can feel a little overwhelming, right? When we're at a place where you kind of have to accept, and that's the thing that I kind of struggle with saying that, but you almost do have to accept that it's going to be out there. We're all having not just our phones now, but also our little, lenses on our face and all this other stuff. And given that technology is there, you either exist in society or you don't, but we don't really have the option to not exist in society. So yeah, it's just kind of there.
I do think we've kind of grown numb to it, because think about all the times that we hear about all of our most personal data being leaked, right? By whatever it was, whether it's a corporation or whether it's a product that has been violating our privacy. I do think it's so hard to still feel shocked or angry by it when it happens all the time. And so that's just kind of a disappointing reality. And then on the flip side of it, these companies clearly create a product that is valuable for people. And so they're not going to walk away from it if it's a tool that helps them connect with people or makes their lives easier. And it's just a really unfortunate cost that you have to pay. I mean, that's the price that you pay for something that you want to use and find it difficult to remove yourself from. And even if you don't, even if you're not on social media, again, there are ways that your information is going to be compromised anyway. It is so hard. Privacy, I don't think it exists anymore. And I just think it's a tough pill to swallow, but that's kind of where we're at right now.
Absolutely. All right. We need to take a quick little break before we come back with my story of the week. But until then, I guess let's all have a little more awareness about the cool sunglasses we see people wearing. Yeah. Especially if somebody comes up to you wearing sunglasses and they're like, hey, I know you. You're blah, blah, blah from blah, blah, blah. I'm already skeptical about that because it's like, do you really know me? I don't know. Anyway, just that skepticism is important. All right. I want to tell you about 1Password, who are bringing you this episode of Tech News Weekly. Here's a great question for you. It's a question I love asking because I already know the answer. Do your end users always work on company-owned devices and IT-approved apps? I didn't think so. So how do you keep your company's data safe when it's sitting on all of those unmanaged apps and devices? Well, 1Password actually has an answer to this question. It's called Extended Access Management. 1Password Extended Access Management helps you secure every sign-in for every app on every device because it solves the problem that traditional IAM and MDM can't touch. We've got a great metaphor for you. So imagine that your company's security is like the quad of a college campus. You've got these nice brick paths between the buildings. Those are the company-owned devices, the IT-approved apps, and the managed employee identities. But then there are the paths that people actually use. We call them desire paths. These are the shortcuts that are worn through the grass because those are the actual straightest lines from point A to point B, the easiest way to do what needs to be done. Those are the unmanaged devices, the shadow IT apps and non-employee identities like contractors. Most security tools, they only work on those happy brick paths, which is unfortunate because a lot of security problems actually take place on the shortcuts, as you might imagine. 1Password Extended Access Management, it's the first security solution that brings all of these unmanaged devices, apps, and identities under your control. It ensures that every user credential is strong, is protected, and every device is known and healthy, and every app is visible. It's security for the way we actually work today, and it's now generally available to companies with Okta and Microsoft Entra, and exciting, in beta for Google Workspace customers. So check it out at 1password.com/twit. That's 1password.com/twit. And we thank 1Password for sponsoring this week's episode of Tech News Weekly. All right, we are back from the break, and that means it's time for my story of the week. I had planned to talk about this last week, but we had a really great conversation with Emily Dreibelbis, and so we kind of carried that in to the next portion. You should go and watch that episode as well. But this is still ongoing, so I have the opportunity to talk about it right now. You may have heard about maybe a little company, or a little organization, a little software system called WordPress, and the drama that's going on between WordPress and another company. If you haven't, well, now's the time. And the reason I think this is so important is because folks might not be aware, WordPress is the software we'll go with that is responsible for a whole heck of a lot of the websites that you visit. It's the sort of back end for a whole heck of a lot of websites that you visit. And given that it sort of powers so much of the web, when things are going on with WordPress, you you want to know about it. So let me give some background, because this involves WordPress and then a company called WP Engine. WP Engine, it's a third-party hosting provider. So that means that it uses WordPress and provides little storage places online for people to have a website. It was founded in 2010, and it uses WordPress software, which is open source, to offer managed hosting services. So in this case, what we mean is WordPress as an open source software is available for anybody to use for free, however they want to, and offer, if they want to, companies can offer managed hosting. So you can imagine you go to a website and you're trying to create a website, you pay them some money, and then they help you create a website. And it just so happens to be that it's WordPress that is kind of the back end of that website that you're creating. In 2018, there was a private equity firm called Silver Lake that acquired WP Engine. Automatic, with 2 T's, is the company that's behind WordPress.com and is the company that is run by one of the creators of WordPress. And Automatic has long criticized WP Engine, this third-party provider, for profiting from WordPress without contributing enough to its development. So one of the things with open source software, it's sort of this agreement that we're all working together to make this better. And if you're going to make money off of a thing that is a community project that we're all working on, then you should, throw in some resources to contribute to the success of this open source software. Well, Automatic and the CEO of Automatic, Matt Mullenweg, feels like WordPress, or rather WP Engine, has not done a good job. On September 20th of this year, there was a conference called WordCamp, and WordPress co-founder, Automatic CEO Matt Mullenweg, actually attacked WP Engine. Not only did he attack it, he called it a cancer in the WordPress community, accused the company of, quote, strip mining the WordPress ecosystem for profit while contributing only minimally to the open source project. The next day, doubling down, Mullenweg said, look, I stand by what I said at WordCamp, and now I'm writing a blog post. That blog post further criticized WP Engine, claiming that the company contributed only 40 hours per week to WordPress development, and said that's insufficient because the company is huge and makes a whole heck of a lot of money. Mullenweg also kind of hinted that legal action might be on its way over WP Engine's use of the WordPress trademark. Interestingly, the WordPress trademark is it's sort of all spelled out as part of the WordPress Foundation, and it explains that there are instances in which the trademark can be used and used freely, but the company actually, or the foundation, updated that page to clarify in such a way that it specifically was talking about WP Engine. A couple of days later, WP Engine actually responded to Mullenweg's multiple attacks by sending a cease and desist letter to Automatic, saying Mullenweg was harassing the company through text messages and calls leading up to that conference on the 20th. And WP Engine claimed that Automatic had demanded, quote, a very large sum of money in exchange for not escalating the conflict publicly. We later found out that Automatic had reached out to WP Engine and said, hey, we want you to either pay an 8% royalty fee on your revenue for using WordPress, or we want you to allocate 8% of your workforce to working on WordPress development. And we don't know exactly what the terms of that were, but the sort of the idea from WP Engine was, if you don't do this, then that means that we are going to say very bad things about you in public. That's what WP Engine claimed. The next day after that, September 24th, Automatic sent its own cease and desist letter to WP Engine, accusing it of unauthorized use of the WordPress trademark, misleading consumers, unfairly profiting from its association with WordPress. Believe it or not, this continues to go. The next day, Automatic doubled down and said WP Engine's use of the WordPress name has caused brand dilution and confusion because people think that WP Engine is directly affiliated with WordPress. Some people even calling it WordPress Engine. On September 26th, they decided to take the nuclear option. WordPress.org blocked WP Engine from accessing its servers, so WP Engine's customers weren't able to get crucial updates and plugins. It was, according to the Register, intended to force WP Engine into contributing more to the open source project or paying that trademark licensing fee. Wild that it went all the way. Mullenweg heard from customers of WP Engine and others in the WordPress community and decided to temporarily lift the block on WP Engine's access to WordPress.org servers. So he said that the company would have until October 1st to find a resolution. WP Engine was instructed to either pay a licensing fee or it needed to establish its own mirror of WordPress.org resources. So stop pulling from our resources. If you want to have these resources, you're going to have to do them yourself. On October 1st, WordPress.org reimposed the block. So this is a couple of days ago as we record the show on October 3rd, on WP Engine, preventing customers from accessing key WordPress resources, which has escalated the legal tension between the two companies. It was yesterday, as we record this, that we finally heard about Automatic's deal with WP Engine, or proposed deal with WP Engine. But ultimately, when it comes to this, we've got a situation where so much of the web is powered by WordPress, either directly or indirectly, as it is with these third parties. And it has sent shivers through the web. And as always, brought up conversations about what impact a single company can have when it's responsible for so much of this, in theory, publicly accessible resource that is the internet. Have you ever played around with WordPress? And I'm also curious just to hear about your thoughts on this drama.
Drama is the right word. I do use WordPress actually for my website, which is kind of my portfolio. And so this is all very fascinating because I wonder too, if you've ever seen any example of anything kind of like this. I mean, it's so fascinating. You're right. In that something like WordPress, which is like, yay, open source, can be so, a little brutal, a little, yeah. I think that's what it kind of comes off as. So I feel like this seems like it's something that probably isn't going to settle down anytime soon. Are you getting that vibe?
I'm getting that vibe. Yeah. This, the rancor that is here is rather, thick. And I think that's the big thing, is there are a lot of emotions involved in this, which is kind of wild to see. I mean, to call a company a cancer and then to be like, not only that, but I'm also going to follow it up with a blog post, that's going to get that company upset. And you have people, I mean, you have to remember that there are people who work at WP Engine who are regularly working on WordPress as part of what they do. It's just that Automatic felt like there weren't enough of them. So the people who do work at WP Engine who weren't kind of being recognized in that, I know a lot, based on what I saw from social media and the responses there, they were genuinely hurt by that and felt like, look, I do care about WordPress and I do care about this. And then you've got interruptions in profit, or in revenue, I guess I should say, which is always a scary thing to do. You never know where that's going to go in terms of legal implications. And it's kind of, it all goes back to, for me, the dangers of having one person who is what is the word I'm looking for? I'm in no way comparing the owner of X, formerly known as Twitter, to the owner of Automatic, because they are very, 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 very different people. Right. What I am comparing is this idea of one person having kind of the keys to the kingdom and being able to make these decisions in such a way that, you know, you're just putting out blog posts and you're talking on stage and you're doing this and you're doing that. That's kind of scary at times. And we just don't know the ramifications of what it looked like when these sites were blocked. And for all we know, there could have been municipalities in the US or elsewhere who have WordPress as a backend through WP Engine, and someone wasn't able to access the community blog that talked about, you know, the fact that, I don't know, an animal escaped from the zoo or something. You know what I mean? Like there are all these little implications that I think are at play here that have to be remembered when it comes to making choices like this. And that's the part it's kind of scary, because you'd think that the internet was big enough at this point that individuals would not have such an impact on it.
Yeah. And these knee-jerk reactions do have that ripple effect. And then I think also, just to go back to that point of the employees who felt like they were doing enough, it's so subjective for someone to say, I don't think you're doing enough in whatever industry, whatever situation. So yeah, agreed that when one person does hold the keys to the kingdom, a lot of people pay the price.
Absolutely. Well, Abrar, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. Of course, folks can head over to cnet.com to check out the work that you're doing. Where else should they go?
Yeah, you can check me out on Instagram, Abrar Al-Heeti, no spaces. I'm on X at Al-Heeti_3, and also on TikTok at Abrar Al-Heeti as well.
Awesome. Thank you, Abrar.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to take another quick break before we come back with a conversation about all of the new stuff Microsoft announced regarding Copilot and AI features. I want to tell you about our next sponsor, though. We're bringing this episode of Tech News Weekly. It's Experts Exchange, and Experts Exchange is awesome. You can join a network of trustworthy and talented tech professionals to get industry insights and advice from people who are actually using the products in your stack, instead of having to pay for expensive enterprise-level tech support. As the tech community for people tired of the AI sellout, Experts Exchange is ready to help carry the fight for the future of human intelligence. And, you know, I had the opportunity to chat with the folks at Experts Exchange, and they're very serious about that. They wear it as a badge of honor that AI is not involved in the responses and the kind of back and forth in the community. They are humans and they are protecting those humans, and they want that to be the sort of core tenet of what Experts Exchange does. It gives you access to professionals in more than 400 fields, including programming, Microsoft, DevOps, and even more. Unlike other places, and I love this too, you get a little worried, right? Sending a question into a place where people are, in theory, there to help you out. Because what if it's a duplicate question? Then you have 3 people writing and saying, this has already been asked. Why are you asking this again? That's not how it works at Experts Exchange. There, duplicate questions are encouraged. Their contributors are tech lovers who graciously answer all questions. One member said, quote, I have never had GPT stop and ask me a question before. That happens on Experts Exchange all the time. They're proudly committed to fostering a community where human collaboration is fundamental. You know, other platforms betray their contributors by selling their content to train AI models. We've heard so much about that. But at Experts Exchange, your privacy, it ain't for sale. They stand against the betrayal of contributors worldwide. They have never and will never sell your data, your content, or your likeness. They block and strictly prohibit AI companies from scraping content from their site to train their LLMs, and their moderators strictly forbid the direct use of LLM content in their threads. The supreme reward for attaining expertise is the fulfillment of passing your knowledge on to help someone in need. Experts deserve a place where they can confidently share their knowledge without worrying about a corporation stealing it to increase shareholder value. And honestly, Humanity deserves a safe haven from AI. So join Experts Exchange today. Listen to what I'm about to say to you. You can join Experts Exchange today and get 90 days free with no credit card required. Go to e-e.com/twit to learn more. That's e-e.com/twit. Sign up, ask a question. With 90 days, you're going to be very surprised, very impressed. Experts Exchange, it's awesome. And thank you for sponsoring this week's episode of Tech News Weekly. All righty, it is time for our next interview. Microsoft just kind of pulled back the curtain on several new features and, awesome additions to its AI offerings. Joining us to talk about everything that Microsoft just announced is Daniel Rubino of Windows Central. Welcome back to the show, Daniel.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so I figured we could kick things off by talking about Copilot's UI redesign, because there's been a big change overall with the way that it looks and the way that you interact with it, and the fact that it now has some very powerful voice interactions. Could you tell us about that?
Sure. So when it comes to generative AI, right, these large language models, the problem right now is user engagement. So it reminds me of the old days before we had Windows 3.1 and Windows 3, right, with an actual UI, right? You would just have like a DOS prompt. Now, if you're new to computers and you sat in front of a DOS prompt, you're like, all right, what do I do next? What can I do on this thing, right? It wasn't until we had a nice UI where you could start clicking things and exploring and launching applications that computers became sort of clicked with people. So that same thing applies to these generative language models, where a lot of times you just go to a screen and it's like a little prompt and that's it. And so you have to be like, oh, okay, what can I ask and what can I do with this thing, right? So what Microsoft is doing is they're changing the UI and the UX to make it more engaging, turn it more from a tool with just a simple prompt to an agent, where something that you interact with. So like now when I launched the new Copilot app on Android, which got a refresh this week, it has this new UI and it says like, good afternoon, Daniel. And it will have a bunch of images and a bunch of things that's like kind of recommending to me that it can do and try out. So, it's like if it's at nighttime, it'll be like, hey, I can create a bedtime story for you, or I can do this, or did you know about sleep and what's the best practices for sleep? And so it's supposed to be kind of based on, what your habits and kind of what you're doing. So right just before this call, I launched it, said, good afternoon, Daniel. And it had a block where when I clicked it, it gave me news briefs. And it would basically go through the news that I like to read and understand. And it would give me audio summaries of those. So it'd be like someone telling me a story. So that's the other half, right? The voices now. You have 4 voice options here, 2 female, 2 males, all different kind of styles. You pick the one you like. You can, of course, switch at any time. But this agent will then tell me the news I'm interested in. Of course, you can swipe and skip it. And it's kind of cool because if it's talking about like a movie or like food or something like that, it'll auto-generate an AI image in the background for that as it's telling you the story to kind of give it context and more of an original feel. So it's a really kind of pushing, like I said, into this idea of an agent for these kind of tools. So it should be rolling out to Windows 11 desktop soon in the coming days. Android and iOS should already have the app updates already. If not, it's in the beta and it'll be coming out soon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was really impressed with everything that was announced and kind of all at the same time, how quickly it all rolled out. Is I guess I'm kind of curious at a sort of a pulled back view, because we saw OpenAI and its latest version of its voice features recently announced. And up to this point, we've kind of seen lockstep between OpenAI and the tools it offers and Microsoft's own Copilot, because we know about the connection between the two. But increasingly, there's at least been conversations about how Microsoft is doing its own thing and trying to do its own thing. Do you feel like this is still an extension of what OpenAI is offering, where, as I said, the new voices came around and the new voice interactions came around, and then we saw Microsoft do the same thing? Or is that kind of coincidental in your thoughts?
I think it's probably coincidental, although you can't rule it out, right? There are close relations between the two companies, there's no doubt. But I think, for a lot of people, this all feels like it's been thrown together at the last minute, kind of. And really, that is the last year and a half of this AI story, is it has been just tossed together. Microsoft came out quickly with this in February and quickly launched it, and they called it Bing Chat, right? And that was like kind of angle at the time. And then they changed it, they rebranded it to Copilots, and now they're doing this agent thing. So some of this is long-term planning. And I believe a lot of this stuff has been sort of in the works now for a couple months, because they've been quiet for the last 3 months in terms of new features for Copilot. But a lot of it is also just kind of course correcting along the way. I remember talking to Microsoft in February 2023 when they first launched this, and there was this internal discussion about, should it be an agent, something that has like a human-like quality to it that we're used to with these sort of assistants, but now powered by AI? Or should it be more just tool-like? And at first they went with tool-like, but now it's clear that they're pushing down the route of an agent. They're a little concerned about, this idea that people form relationships with these AIs, right? And that's kind of where the stuff goes. Some people want that, and that's kind of like the movie Her, which I've still never seen, but I'm told this is what it's like. But it's like, do we want that kind of AI? And that's kind of looks like the route they're going down now with this. So, the idea is in Windows 2, when you turn on your computer in the morning, it's going to be a really smart assistant that proactively brings things to your attention. Hey, here are the emails that came in last night that are super important. Let me summarize them for you. Here's what you normally open up the first thing in the morning. Here's the spreadsheet. Here's a calendar appointment. But it's doing a lot more than that. It's acting on it. It's presenting it to you almost like a real human being would, versus just like what we've had in the past, right? Siri and Google Assistant, all these kind of things have been very mechanical, and they're just surfacing data to you, versus something that's more curated. And that's really kind of what they're going here, a curated experience.
Got it. The other feature that was announced is Copilot Vision. And this seems rather involved. It's a pretty cool sort of set of features, so to speak. Tell us about Copilot Vision and maybe what ideas you've had about using this new technology.
Yeah. So when it comes to AI, what we want it to do is basically help us out in life. Right now, I would say the biggest problem people have, besides trying to figure out what's true or not in the world, is making sense of all the data that we are exposed to every day. That is, we see a lot of images, we see a lot of words, and the human brain only, can process so much of that. So this is where kind of computers come in and help you out. So we saw earlier this year, Google launched Circle to Search, where you would have any image on your phone, you hold down the little software button on the bottom, circle it, and it goes finds an image for you and related content. So this is kind of like that, but it's a little bit more. Basically, Copilot can see what's on your web browser at the time and what's on your screen, and you can kind of ask it any question about what's in that image. Like, what does that house look like in the background? Who is this lady? Is this a famous model? Like, you can ask it stuff like that, and it's going to be able to give you those questions as if it's like a really smart nerd who just knows everything about the world. And it can go out there and figure this stuff out and do it much more quickly. I personally find like Google's Circle to Search has been extremely valuable. I broke an old mug I've had for 20 years recently. I took a photo of it, what's left of it, and I Googled to search to see if it was still available. Could I still find this on the internet and buy it? And I could. So I broke our bed. There was a piece of it that broke. I did a Circle to Search. It's like it was the remote control for it. Like, it had no part number. It was really hard to find, but I did this, found out on eBay, ordered a replacement part, right?
Nice.
So That is like an incredible amount of technology that we've never had before that really augments our ability to go out and, find data, make sense of things. Like you could just see a picture of someone's pants or shirt and be like, I want that shirt. Where do I get it? Before you had to go into Google and kind of like describe it, right? Now you could just let the image engine do it for you. And it's pretty darn accurate. That's what's really cool about this.
Yeah, that is very cool. There are some updates that are coming as well to Copilot Plus PCs specifically. You mentioned the kind of circle to search being called click to do. Could you also tell us AI being used in Windows search? This is something that I'm curious to hear about because this seems to be one of the most common complaints that I hear from Windows users is search kind of sucks across Windows. Do you think that AI is going to help this situation, or are you worried that it'll kind of muddy the waters?
Yeah, no, I think this will help out. You're right. Macs have always had a better reputation when it comes to search on this system. So using AI and specifically machine learning here, it's going to be able to sift through what's on your laptop or your PC, and all this stuff, of course, is secured. BBS, it's an enclave, it's all encrypted and stuff. But basically, the benefit here is fuzzy semantics, fuzzy logic. So before you had to be very specific with a specific keyword, the name of the file, right? You had to have that in there or something related to it that was very close, right? Now you can be like very vague on this, like whether it's documents or a PowerPoint, you could just name roughly what you remember, and it should go out and be able to find that on your computer for you while doing that. We've already seen this, if you have Google Photos, which has been really nice. It could still be improved, but like if you just go in there and type dog or, whatever, it's going to go through all your photos and bring up the identities of those things. Or if you bring up like a bar, right, it'll find all your photos. That's the same thing here, just on the PC route. So yeah, this should greatly enhance the search experience on Windows PC, which has been a big complaint for many years.
Understood. And then you've got a couple more features that are coming as well. Super resolution in photos, and then generative kind of fill or erase in Paint. Tell us about those.
Yeah, so I love super resolution. I've had third-party tools like this already. Topaz Labs makes a really it's kind of expensive, but it's a software that relies on your RTX GPU. But the idea is you give it an old photo or just a low resolution photo, and it uses AI to upscale it and improve it. So right now I have to pay for that, and it's expensive. Microsoft is building it basically into the Photos app. So it'll be free for people to use. Now, will it be as good as like what Topaz Labs does? Probably not, right? Topaz Labs is specializing in this, and it gives it a lot of options while you're doing it. But this is going to be really nice for people who have old photos or find a low resolution photo of something on the internet, and they can save it and have it upscale. And this technology actually works pretty well. It has sometimes issues with faces, but that's like one area that's been that they've been really focusing on. So I'm actually super excited about that. That's something that I think a lot of people can use, even if you put in scan old like physical photos to your computer, right? This can then greatly enhance those photos. And I think that's a big thing, especially for me. I'm Gen X. Like we don't have a ton of photos, and especially digital ones laying around. So this will be one way to sort of preserve that while also getting a better experience. Generative fill, erase, and paint. So this is always the thing where you might have an image or you're drawing something like it can. We already see this with Galaxy AI technology where it fills in the background, where you might want to make the picture 16 by 9, but it's only 3 by 4, right? So what do you put in the sides there, right? Right now, we're used to sort of even on TV, right? They blur out the sides or they repeat it with the rest of the image. This is basically going to fill in that for you and add those missing objects. So again, Samsung's doing this already. Google's kind of doing this already too. Apple, I'm sure, is getting in on it. So these are standard tools. They're just going to be part of Windows, though, but they'll only be used on Copilot PCs because they do rely on having the neural processing unit, which is optimized for doing this. Technically, you could do these with the GPU or CPU on the device, but on laptops, that's going to be very power intensive. And that's what they're trying to get away from. They want you to be able to do this AI stuff without sacrificing your battery or performance on the device for other tasks.
Got it. Daniel Rubino, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to join us today to talk about the whole host of new features that are coming or have already come to many of Microsoft's generative AI products and others. Of course, people can go over to windowscentral.com to check out the work you're doing. Where would they go if they want to follow you online and keep up with what you're doing?
Yeah, so I'm still on Twitter, or X, as some people call it. That's Daniel_Rubino. And I'm also on Threads at the same address. So you can go there, follow me. I do respond to a lot of questions when people have them about this technology. So I'm pretty responsive there. But yeah, and we do the occasional Windows Central podcast as well.
Awesome. Thank you very much. And we'll see you again soon.
Great. Thank you.
All righty, we're going to take another quick break before we come back with an interview with a developer who may be familiar to some of you who have been on the show in the past. But I want to take a moment to tell you about Flashpoint, who are bringing you this episode of Tech News Weekly. For security leaders, honestly, 2024 has been a year like no other. Cyber threats and physical security concerns have continued to increase, and now geopolitical instability is adding a new layer of risk and uncertainty. So let's talk numbers. What does this look like? Last year, there was a staggering 84% rise in ransomware attacks and a 34% jump in data breaches. What's the result? Trillions of dollars in financial losses and threats to safety worldwide. That is where Flashpoint comes in. Flashpoint empowers organizations to make mission-critical decisions that will keep their people and their assets safe. So how do they do it? Well, by combining cutting-edge technology with the expertise of world-class analyst teams. And with Ignite, which is Flashpoint's award-winning threat intelligence platform, you get access to critical data, finished intelligence, alerts, and analytics all in one place. You can maximize your existing security investments. Some Flashpoint customers avoid $500 million in fraud loss annually and have a 482% return on investment in 6 months. Flashpoint earned Frost & Sullivan's 2024 Global Product Leadership Award for unrivaled threat data and intelligence. An SVP of cyber operations at a large U.S. financial institution said, quote, Flashpoint saves us over $80 million in fraud losses every year. Their proactive approach and sharp insights are crucial in keeping our financial institutions secure. They're not just a solution, they're a strategic partner helping us stay ahead of cyber threats. So it's no wonder Flashpoint is trusted by both mission-critical businesses and governments worldwide. To access the industry's best threat data and intelligence, visit flashpoint.io today. That's flashpoint.io. And we thank Flashpoint for sponsoring this week's episode of Tech News Weekly. All right, we are back from the break, and that means it's time for our next interview. Joining me again on Tech News Weekly is app developer Christian Selig, this time here to talk about, well, another app that has gone through some things. Welcome back to the show.
I need like a punch card, I think,
yeah,
for every visit. Yeah,
you should. And when you get to 5, you turn it in and you get a developer who makes apps for you instead of you having to make them.
Ooh, okay. Yeah, I'll work toward that then.
So we got to talk about your app Juno. There are, of course, going to be some folks tuning in who have not heard about Juno. Can you tell us what Juno is? What's it for? What does it do?
Yeah. So I guess long story short, Juno is it's a app for viewing YouTube on Vision OS, because YouTube announced, I think like a few weeks prior to the Vision Pro launching, that they weren't really interested in doing a first-party app of their own. And I had, through my previous app, Apollo, I had quite a bit of experience building YouTube into the app because people would post YouTube videos to Reddit and whatnot. I had a lot of code around presenting YouTube videos. So I was like, oh, I can whip up a pretty quick little app to present YouTube videos in a way that would be at least better than, going to youtube.com and Safari on Vision Pro, where all the tap targets are kind of like more mouse optimized and it's a little finicky with your fingers. So I was like, I'll throw this together. get it out by the time the Vision Pro launches, and have like a nice little simple app that makes watching YouTube videos a little more Vision OS-esque for people who have got this new device and want something a little more polished than just like the Safari experience right out of the gate.
Yeah, so that kind of was my next question there. The way that people watched YouTube, the way that people were expected to watch YouTube videos, given that Alphabet/Google said we're not making a YouTube app, was that they would go to the Safari web browser and then go to YouTube and hit play. And so
right, like 2006.
Yeah, exactly. Like exactly.
Yeah.
So you thought, you know what, let's do something that's a little bit more clean and polished. And actually, I didn't realize this part of it, that you had some experience because of Apollo. Can you go into a little bit more detail about that? You were basically making it so that people didn't have to bounce out of Apollo to go to the YouTube app or something? Got it.
Exactly. So ideally, like if somebody posted a YouTube app to like r/video or YouTube link to r/videos rather, ideally you wouldn't be thrown out of the app into a different area. You could just stay there and quickly jump to the comments or something. And YouTube has a really nice way to do that. They have like what's called an I-frame player. And for the uninitiated, an I-frame is basically just like a portal into a website. So in Apollo, I did it this way they had, where you would basically just embed the YouTube website, but just specifically the YouTube website video player into Apollo. So it would play right then and there. And they had a nice library for doing this. So I basically just took that code and was like, this works great for playing a video inline in a native feeling way in Apollo. I can leverage this and at least make it feel like it's kind of like the Vision OS video player, with easier to tap targets, easier to scrub around the video, easier to close the video and whatnot. And that kind of served as the foundation for the app.
Got it. Now let's talk about what's happened to the app as of October 1st. And after you kind of reveal that part to the folks who aren't aware, maybe you can tell us a little bit about how you're feeling about Google and Apple's decision, and if you think it was the right decision.
No, I think they crushed it. No, it's I think the writing was on the wall after I got an email from Google. Like I think I shared on my blog months ago that they kind of reached out. We're like, hey, we're not, super happy about this. So I was kind of like, this is has an expiration date, to say the least. And it was always an app that I built like primarily because I was getting this headset and I watch a lot of YouTube. So it's like, this would be, if nobody else uses this, it'll be something for me. I don't really care beyond that. And two, it'll be a nice way to get used to these Vision OS APIs because I've never built for this brand new Apple platform before. And it's kind of sound like a good way to get my feet wet with it. And fundamentally, it accomplished those two things. And beyond that, it was kind of just like, I charged a few bucks for it, but it was kind of just always like a fun project I built. And it was kind of in my head, as soon as it stops becoming fun, it's just something I won't build anymore, because fun primarily was the number one goal. I guess in a sense, like I have other apps where like akin to how you folks are professional podcasters, if you had on the side like a podcast about tomato gardening on the weekends or something, and Big Tomato came at you and said, we're not happy with the secrets you're exposing, we're coming after you, this isn't cool, you'd probably be like, you know what, like this isn't worth fighting, I just like talking about tomatoes, like that's cool, whatever. Not fun anymore. And that was kind of how I approached Juno, where it's like, okay, if that's gonna be how it goes, that's cool, I guess I'll just keep working on other stuff then. So unfortunate, but I guess not the end of the world.
Yeah, this is why I'm really happy to be talking to you specifically about this thing that you created, because I don't know if you saw, but I certainly did see some people kind of take this thing that happened to you and turn it into something else. There was a lot of analysis and some would say navel gazing about this whole thing.
I might have missed that. No, honestly,
genuinely. Oh,
yeah.
In the sense of this is a very powerful company that is in collusion with another powerful company, and they're crushing small developers. I saw that. I honestly, I don't remember exactly who said it. I'm not just doing the like, oh, I don't want to say. I don't remember exactly who said it, but then I saw a lot of people kind of hopping on board with that and talking about how it wasn't cool that Google kind of whispered to Apple, and then Apple made the decision to pull your app from the App Store. So maybe you could you give them a little bit more insight into that? And if you, as a developer, and a developer who unfortunately has gone through this kind of thing a little bit in the past, do you feel a sense of unsteadiness or unease as a developer that you're working for this large company in a way, and you don't have control of your destiny?
It's a great question. I guess from Google's end, I think, if we can say that, it's unfortunate.
We'll bleep it, but
yeah, it's unfortunate. But for Apple's end, I don't know if I've just been around the block long enough that it's not super surprising. Like that's iOS, man. Like there's one person at the gate, letting everything in and out. That's, I guess, eroding somewhat in recent years. But that's kind of just the name of the game. I kind of figured one indie developer, just logically speaking, wasn't worth going to war with Google over. I'd love to think I'm of anywhere near that level of importance, but I'm clearly not. So like, why on earth would they ever do that? And in terms of like, that would pretty much be all they could do, I think, and it would really sour their relationship. And I know there's like, between their search engine deals and whatnot, there's a lot of money flowing there. So I figured logistically Apple probably wasn't going to step in and do much. But I will say, like, as others have said a lot this week, like it's one of the things where like it would be less unfortunate, I guess, if there were alternate means to, like, if Apple wasn't the only person who could say yes or no here,
right?
And that is, I guess, one of the a prominent argument for the whole sideloading side of things.
All right, let's take a little pause, Christian, before we come back with the rest of the questions I have for you, because I do want to tell you about our next sponsor of Tech News Weekly. It's ThreatLocker, who are bringing you this episode. Another question for you that I think I know the answer to. Do zero-day exploits and supply chain attacks keep you up at night? Well, then you are the person I'm talking to, because you can worry no more. Just harden your security with ThreatLocker. Worldwide, companies like JetBlue trust ThreatLocker to secure their data and keep their business operations flying high. Imagine taking a proactive, deny-by-default approach to cybersecurity, blocking every action, process, and user unless authorized by your team. ThreatLocker helps you do this and provides a full audit of every action for risk management and compliance. Its 24/7 US-based support team fully supports onboarding and beyond. And that means you can stop the exploitation of trusted applications within your organization and keep your business secure and protected from ransomware. That's the big word, and it's always something that you should be, preparing for. Organizations across any industry can benefit from ThreatLocker's ring fencing. It was super cool talking to the team at ThreatLocker about ring fencing. Use ring fencing to isolate critical and trusted applications from unintended uses or weaponization, and also limit attackers' lateral movement within the network. With ThreatLocker's ring fencing, it was able to foil a number of attacks that were not stopped by traditional EDR. In fact, the 2020 cyber attack on SolarWinds Orion was foiled by ring fencing. When I read about that and talked to the team at ThreatLocker about that, my mind was blown. I thought that was super cool. ThreatLocker, by the way, it works for Macs as well. So if you've got a Mac environment, well, this is also for you. So get unprecedented visibility and control of your cybersecurity quickly, easily, and cost-effectively. ThreatLocker's zero-trust endpoint protection platform offers a unified approach to protecting users, devices, and networks against the exploitation of zero-day vulnerabilities. Get a free 30-day trial and learn more about how ThreatLocker can help mitigate unknown threats and ensure compliance. Visit threatlocker.com. That's threatlocker.com. And we thank ThreatLocker for sponsoring this week's episode of Tech News Weekly. All right, let's head back to it. I've got more questions for you, Christian. So then, to clarify, did you click the button or buttons that resulted in the app not being available to people, or were the buttons clicked for you?
Oh, they were very much clicked for me. I was eating spaghetti and I just like opened up my phone and it was like email from Apple Legal and it was like, okay, it's gone. or something to that legal effect. Or no, they said like, okay, as a result of this, your app will be removed. And I like quickly shot back an email and I was like, okay, like when will it be removed? Like, I'll send out a tweet or something just saying like, heads up, this is going to be removed shortly. And I logged into App Store Connect and it's like removed. I'm like, oh, like they mean like will be as in like in 7 seconds.
Oh my word.
So it was like, yeah. So it was, no, nothing on my end. I hadn't heard from, I think, either party in like a few weeks. So it was just kind of like, oh, okay, I guess now is when the fire at the end of the TNT stick finally.
Yeah. Yeah. We're right there
up.
now. See, and this is where I kind of look back to before you, whether you intended to or not, you were a bit of it's like a really artistic version of your face got painted onto the shields and the tabards of many a champion who was like railing against Reddit at the time. How does it feel? I know that this isn't as extreme, that there were only, from what I saw and from the fact that you didn't really see this happen, this idea that kind of your apps have served as a jumping off point for people to rally behind like big companies making the decision for small developers. Do you internalize that at all? Or do you feel like it's just kind of like that's an interesting thing to look at that's happening over there?
That's another great question. I guess, again, I've been through the ringer long enough that I kind of have an idea that these companies really don't care immensely about what the public thinks and like outcries, unless they get to like trying to think like the Unity level or like the Sonos level. As long like if there's like, it's like in Fight Club, if there's like a percentage they hit where people get really angry, and it's really hard to hit that percentage. So 99% of the time I'm just like, it's cool that people are passionate about this, but these companies don't care. And it's fun to be like passionate about this with my friends. And it feels great that people are like kind enough to like support me in these unfortunate events. But it's one of those things where I guess I don't put too much stock into the like, oh yeah, this is gonna change the world. It's like, no, these companies, it's kind of like a tale as old as time with these companies. They see the numbers and they see what they want to see happen, and it's really hard to steer that boat in any other direction.
Yeah. Good news, you do still have 2 apps, like utilities
at the time of this podcast.
Yes, at the time of this podcast, yes. For download, tell us about what you have available for people.
So I've got 2 little utility apps on the side. So I've got I don't think I've touched either of them in quite a while, but they were fun at the time. They were little Safari extensions for it was one of those things where like you release an app that does what it says on the tin, and it's kind of like, well, all right,
you're good.
Yeah, you're good. One of them, it like if you're familiar with AMP links on Google at all, which are I used to know what the acronyms stand for. Accelerated Mobile Pages. That's it. Still got it. They're basically like Google's little way of like preloading a website in this like mobile format. And it was like a cool idea in theory. Ended up being really annoying and broke all the time. So it kind of was just a Safari extension once Apple released that functionality to iOS, that would like hook into detect an AMP link and kind of like kick out to the normal good old website URL that has existed since, the 80s or whatever. And that still does pretty well today, just because it's the common pain point of the internet. There's another one that just lets you like view the HTML for a web page. But the kind of the bread and butter, and even throughout Juno, like what's the thing that kind of pays the bills and lets me have these fun projects is I have an app called Pixel Pals, which is kind of like a virtual pets kind of experience through like widgets in the app. And you can choose different pets and kind of raise them. And it was kind of started as a fun thing in Apollo that spun off into a different app after it kind of got some traction on TikTok and whatnot. And it's just been a lot of fun to build. And that's kind of what I've been working on. Like even since like around the time Google started messaging me, I was kind of like not working on Juno as much because again, it was kind of like a fun project. But even more since then, it's kind of what I've been spending a lot of time on, like tweaking and rewriting and doing some stuff with. And it's been a lot of fun because it's a very different project than a traditional like utility style iPhone app, where it's kind of like bleeds into the game territory almost a little bit more.
Yeah. It's a delightful app that everybody should at least check out.
Absolutely.
It's kind of a fun little way to have a pet on your phone, which is enjoyable.
Who would love that?
Yeah. And I guess the last thing I'll ask, because this is something I always ask when I've got a creator of some sort on the show.
Ooh.
any future plans you care to share? Or are you just really focusing on Pixel Pals?
I think for now, yeah. I think like I've been wanting to rewrite it in more like right now it's an app that focuses a lot on like the widget experience and like the dynamic island experience because that's kind of where it was born from. But I want the core app itself to have a little bit more there outside of just the widgets. So I've been pouring a lot of attention there and doing some stuff like some game engines and stuff that I think will make a pretty fun result once it gets to the shipping stage.
Awesome. I'm actually very excited to hear that. That'll be fun.
It should be pretty good.
Awesome. Well, Christian, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. If folks want to keep up with what you're working on and know when any future versions are available, where's the place they go for that?
Christian Selig pretty much everywhere, wherever you do your social media, and not really on Facebook, I guess, but everywhere else. You can find me posting nonsense, so shouldn't be too hard.
Awesome. Thank you for taking the time to join us today. We appreciate it.
Pleasure's always mine.
All righty, folks. That is that. So I've just realized, Anthony, that we've got another ad. So should I read that now and then you can insert it in post, or how do we want to do that? Oh, and Christian, you're free to hop off whenever you're ready.
Perfect. Thanks, y'all.
Let's wrap the episode and then we'll record like a break for maybe in Christian's.
Yeah, that'll be a good thing. All right, cool. Alrighty, folks, that brings us to the end of this episode of Tech News Weekly. The show publishes every Thursday at twit.tv/TNW. That's the place where you go to subscribe to the show in audio and video formats. If you'd like to get every single Twit show ad-free, well, we've got a way for you to do that. It's called Club Twit at twit.tv/clubtwit. When you join the club for $7 a month, not only do you get every single Twitch show ad-free, you also gain access to the Twit Plus bonus feed that has extra content you won't find anywhere else, behind the scenes, before the show, after the show. Special Club Twit events get published there. Access to the members-only Discord server, a fun place to go to chat with your fellow Club Twit members and those of us here at Twit, and access to the video versions of our Club Twit shows, including my shows, iOS Today and Hands on Mac, Hands on Windows, Untitled Linux Show, plus so much more. And did I mention that warm, fuzzy feeling you get knowing that you're helping to support the stuff we do here at Twit? It's just $7 a month, and we would love to see you join us in the club. It's always fun popping in and seeing new people with us every day. And of course, you can check out some great events that we're regularly doing in the club as well. Leo and I continue to add to that list. I know someone just recently joined because they wanted to check out Mikah's Crafting Corner. So yeah, if you're looking for that kind of thing, then you can join us there too. twit.tv/clubtwit. If you'd like to follow me online, I'm at Mikah Sargent on many a social media network, or you can head to chihuahua.coffee. That's CHIHUA.coffee, where I've got links to the places I'm most active online. Be sure to check out iOS Today and Hands on Mac, which will publish later today. And tune in on Sundays, where I host Hands on Tech, a show where I take your tech questions and answer them, as well as review products. We look forward to having you back again next week for another episode of Tech News Weekly. Bye-bye.